Garcia, the bills and refunds were sent away from the customers.
I am not explaining agency mail in a closed vessel.
Unauthorized charges and cash payments were used to keep other policies.
This is Ana Gabriela Garcia, a licensed State Farm insurance agent who operated without oversight for 3 years in Capistrano Beach, California. Over 300 clients depended on her to keep them covered. Not one person checked.
Then let the insurance evidence speak, not
It
me.
became one client's money covering another client's problem.
You are not getting another version from blank bins and a covered board.
She would not get to finish that sentence. By the time the detective set the manila folder on her kitchen table, investigators had already documented more than 300 altered checks, 52 unauthorized credit card charges, and a string of policyholders who believed they were insured but were not. $195,626. 3 years. Hundreds of victims. And among them, the people who had trusted her the most. Her own family. Before we go any further, I have to ask you something. When you write your insurance check every month, do you actually know where it goes? Do you know if it reaches the company, or if it just sits in someone's personal account? Drop a comment and tell me if you have ever followed up on a policy after paying. And subscribe if you have not yet. This channel does not let these stories get buried. Ana Gabriela Garcia was born in 1973 in Santa Ana, California, the second of 4 children in a family that had crossed the border from Jalisco a decade earlier. Her father worked nights at a packaging plant in the City of Industry. Her mother ran a small income tax preparation office out of a converted laundromat on 4th Street, doing returns for Spanish-speaking neighbors at $35 a filing. Ana grew up in that office. By 13, she could fill out a 1040EZ without looking at the instructions. By 16, she was answering the phone, translating for elderly clients, and figuring out which forms went to which agency. Classmates at Santa Ana High School remembered her as quiet, organized, and pathologically punctual. Her senior yearbook entry said she wanted to be a CPA. Her counselor's notes described her as someone who, quote, takes responsibility seriously and is trusted by her peers, end quote. Those words would follow her for the next 3 decades, used by employers, neighbors, and eventually her own attorney. She attended Santa Ana College for 2 years, studying business administration, and left without a degree when her father suffered a stroke in the spring of 1994. She took a clerical position at a farmer's insurance agency in Tustin to help with the medical bills. She made $9.25 an hour. Her supervisor at the time, an agent named Richard Beltran, would later tell investigators that Ana was, quote, the most reliable person in the office, end quote. She organized the filing system. She answered phones in English and Spanish. She remembered the names of every client's children. In 1998, she married Hector Nuno, a flooring installer she had met at her cousin's quinceañera. She took his name, became Ana Nuno Garcia on her California driver's license, and the couple moved into a small rental in San Juan Capistrano. 2 children followed, a boy in 2001 and a girl in 2004. Hector worked long hours laying tile in tract homes along the South Coast. Ana kept the books for his subcontracting business at the kitchen table after the kids went to sleep. She passed the California Department of Insurance Personal Lines Broker Agent exam in 2006 on her first attempt. She framed the license and hung it in the hallway. Her sister later told investigators that Ana had cried when she received the certificate in the mail because their father, who had since recovered partially from the stroke, told her at dinner that night that she was, quote, the smartest one in the family, end quote. For the next 5 years, she worked at 2 smaller agencies, building a book of Spanish-speaking clients across South Orange County. Then, in September of 2011, she was hired as a licensed agent at an independently owned State Farm agency in Dana Point. The principal agent was a man named Brian Whitfield, a former Marine who had taken over his father's book of business in 2009. Whitfield needed someone bilingual. He needed someone organized. He needed someone he could trust to handle the cash drawer, the deposits, the renewals, and the small mountain of premium checks that arrived at the office every single day. He hired Ana Garcia on the spot. Her starting salary was $46,000 a year, plus commission. Her first performance review, dated March of 2012, called her, quote, exceptional with elderly and Spanish-speaking clientele, retains business at a rate well above agency average, end quote. Whitfield gave her a Christmas bonus of $1,500 that December. He also gave her something else: a key to the front door, the alarm code, and signing authority on the agency's general operating account. To understand what Ana Garcia did, you have to understand how an independently owned State Farm agency actually works. State Farm itself is the underwriter. It writes the policy, holds the reserves, and pays the claims. But the agent who sells you that policy in your neighborhood is not a State Farm employee. He or she is an independent contractor operating a small business under the State Farm brand, with State Farm's permission and oversight. That agent collects premium payments on behalf of the company. When a client walks in with a check, when a payment is mailed in, when someone hands the receptionist a stack of 20s from a coffee can, that money is not the agent's money. It belongs to State Farm. The agent's job is to record the payment, log it in the company's system, and remit it upward through a daily reconciliation process. The agent is, in the most literal legal sense, a fiduciary. The client's money flows through the agency. It does not stop there. The Dana Point agency had its own internal procedures. Brian Whitfield required that every check be photocopied at intake, logged in a daily ledger, and deposited into the agency's State Farm designated trust account by close of business. Cash payments were to be converted to money orders and sent the same day. Refund checks issued back to clients were supposed to be cut from a separate account, signed by Whitfield personally, and mailed within 72 hours. On paper, the system was airtight. In practice, there was one gap. Whitfield was a working agent. He spent 4 days a week out of the office, meeting with commercial clients, attending industry events, and handling the larger life and annuity accounts that drove the agency's revenue. The day-to-day mechanics of intake, deposit, refund issuance, and client correspondence were delegated. By 2012, they had been delegated entirely to Ana Garcia. She was the one who opened the mail. She was the one who logged the checks. She was the one who walked the daily deposit to the Bank of America, branch 4 doors down on Del Prado Avenue. She was the one who answered the phone when a client called asking why their premium had jumped. She was the one who set up the auto renewals. She was the one who, when a refund was due, prepared the check for Whitfield's signature, then mailed it. She also held something else that mattered: a small wooden tray on the corner of her desk where clients dropped off their payments in person. By the end of 2011, that tray was where most of her elderly and Spanish-speaking clients placed their monthly checks, because Ana had told them, quietly and warmly, that they could just bring it to her and she would take care of it. They trusted her. They had no reason not to. No one audited the tray. No one watched the mailroom. No one cross-referenced the names on the incoming checks against the names in the trust account deposits. Brian Whitfield was a busy man. He had hired someone reliable. He believed her. The first check came in on October 4th, 2011, 5 weeks into her employment. It was a personal check for $287, written by a man named Eduardo Salcedo, an auto and homeowner client who had been with the agency since 2002. The check was made out to State Farm Insurance Company. Ana logged the payment into the system as received. Then she carried the check into the back office. With a fine point ballpoint pen, she added 2 words to the payee line. She added, quote, C/O A Garcia, end quote. Care of A. Garcia. She endorsed the back. She walked it to a Wells Fargo branch in San Clemente, 3 towns away, where she held a personal checking account in her own name. She deposited it. The teller did not ask questions. The endorsement was technically valid. The funds cleared. Eduardo Salcedo did not notice. His policy was credited in the State Farm system because Ana had logged it as received, and 2 days later used a different client's payment to cover the trust account shortfall. Salcedo received his renewal notice on time. He had no reason to suspect that his money had gone anywhere else. That was the template. 307 times, over the next 3 years, Ana Garcia repeated some version of that same maneuver. But the maneuver evolved, It had to, because here was the problem. If Ana pocketed Eduardo Salcedo's premium, the State Farm computer system still expected the money to arrive at the corporate level. The trust account had to balance. So when the daily reconciliation ran, she had to plug the hole. She did it by taking the next incoming payment from a different client and applying it to Salcedo's policy, which meant that the second client's policy was now short. So she took the third client's payment to cover the second, and the fourth to cover the third. The treadmill started turning. Within 6 months, she had 18 policies in motion at any given time, each one being kept alive by another client's diverted money. She kept the rotation in a spiral-bound notebook she stored in the locked bottom drawer of her desk, written in shorthand only she could read. Initials, dates, dollar amounts. Investigators would later recover that notebook intact. When a client's premium was due to refund, she ran the same trick in reverse. The agency would generate a refund check from the corporate trust. Ana would prepare it, take it to Whitfield for signature, intercept it from the outgoing mail, alter the payee line to include her name, and deposit it. The client never received the refund. The client also rarely called to ask, because most of them had no idea a refund was even owed. The escalation came in 2013. By then, the rotation had grown unmanageable. She added new tools. She started running unauthorized charges on clients' credit cards on file, telling no one, using the funds to plug shortfalls on other policies. She set elderly clients up on installment plans they had never agreed to, which gave her more deposits to play with each month. When a client paid in cash, she walked the bills to a check-cashing storefront on El Camino Real and converted them into money orders made out to whoever needed covering next. She redirected mail. She changed the billing address on policies to her own P.O. box at the Capistrano Beach Post Office, Box 1147, so that statements showing 0 payments or premiums in default would never reach the client. Some clients had not received an actual State Farm statement in over a year. They believed everything was fine. They had no reason to believe otherwise. And the people she chose were specific, not random. She chose people who would not check. Elderly clients with cognitive decline. Family members who trusted her because she was family. Monolingual Spanish speakers who would not call corporate to verify. A retired plumber named Arturo Mendoza, 81 years old, who had been with State Farm since 1978 and had never filed a claim. Her own aunt, her father's older sister, who lived in a mobile home park in San Juan Capistrano and paid her homeowner's premium in cash every month, in person, at the front counter, because she did not trust the mail. That aunt, Lucia Garcia, was 73 years old. She paid Ana $1,412 in cash over a 16-month period. None of it reached State Farm. Lucia's homeowner's policy lapsed in March of 2013. She did not know. It was a kitchen fire that ended it. On the night of June 11, 2014, an 84-year-old client named Maria Esperanza Ochoa fell asleep with a pot of beans on the stove of her single-story home in San Clemente. She woke up to smoke and the sound of her smoke detector. The fire was contained to the kitchen, but the damage was significant. Cabinets destroyed, ceiling blackened. The stove and surrounding drywall a total loss. Her grandson, who lived next door, called the fire department and then helped her file an insurance claim the next morning. Mrs. Ochoa had been a State Farm homeowner's client since 1991. 23 years. She had paid her premium every month in cash at the front counter of the Dana Point agency, handed personally to Ana Garcia, who had become a friend. Mrs. Ochoa called her, quote, mija, end quote. When the grandson called State Farm's claims line the following day, the operator told him there was no active policy on the address. Mrs. Ochoa's homeowner's coverage had been canceled in November of 2013 for non-payment, 7 months earlier. No claim could be filed. There was nothing to pay out. The grandson, a man named Daniel Ochoa, who worked as a paralegal for a personal injury firm in Irvine, did not accept that answer. He drove to the Dana Point agency that same afternoon. He asked to speak with Brian Whitfield. He showed him a folder of his grandmother's cash receipts, handwritten on State Farm branded receipt slips, every single one signed by Ana Garcia. The last receipt was dated May 30th, 2014, 12 days before the fire. Brian Whitfield closed the agency that afternoon. He drove to his accountant's office. The two of them began pulling records. Within 6 hours, they had identified 11 policies that had been canceled for non-payment, despite the clients believing they were current. Within 48 hours, that number had grown to 37. Within a week, Whitfield had retained outside legal counsel and filed a formal complaint with the California Department of Insurance and the Orange County District Attorney's Office. He also did something that surprised investigators. He paid Mrs. Ochoa's kitchen fire claim out of his own pocket, $41,000. Then he hired a public adjuster to make her whole on the rest. He told the DA's office, quote, "This happened in my agency. I am responsible whether the company is or not," end quote. Ana Garcia did not come to work the following Monday or Tuesday. On Wednesday, she called in sick. On Thursday, she sent a brief email saying she needed personal leave. She did not return Whitfield's calls. The Orange County District Attorney's Insurance Fraud Unit assigned the case to investigator Karen Whitlock, a former Long Beach detective who had spent the last 9 years working white-collar cases. Whitlock had seen agency embezzlement before. She had not seen it at this scale. Her first move was to subpoena 3 years of bank records from every account Ana Garcia held under either her maiden name or her married name. Wells Fargo in San Clemente, Bank of America in Capistrano Beach, a small Navy Federal account in her husband's name on which she held signing authority. The records came back over a period of 9 weeks. When Whitlock laid them out chronologically on her conference room table, the pattern was visible to anyone who looked. Deposits of odd specific dollar amounts, not round numbers. $287, $412.40, $601.75. The exact amounts of insurance premium checks, hundreds of them, stretching from October 2011 to November 2014. Whitlock subpoenaed the corresponding deposited check images. Each one was a personal or business check originally made out to State Farm Insurance Company, with 2 words added in different colored ink, quote, CE/OA Garcia, end quote, and Ana's endorsement on the reverse. The second piece came from the Capistrano Beach Post Office. Whitlock obtained a customer record for P.O. Box 1147 and matched it against the change of address forms filed for policyholders. 47 State Farm clients had, at some point between 2012 and 2014, had their billing address changed to that P.O. box. None of them had requested the change. 41 of them were over the age of 65. The third piece was the notebook. When the DA's office executed a search warrant on the Dana Point Agency on July 28, 2014, investigators found a spiral-bound stenographer's notebook in the locked bottom drawer of Ana's desk. The drawer was unlocked. She had not been back to the office in over a month and had not bothered to clear it out. Inside were 83 pages of handwritten shorthand, initials, dates, dollar amounts, arrows linking one entry to another, the rotation, the treadmill, laid out in her own handwriting. Whitlock brought in a forensic accountant from the DA's office, a woman named Patricia Brennan, who spent 2 months decoding the notebook. Brennan was able to match 307 of the entries to specific clients, specific deposits, and specific dates. She would later testify that, quote, "The defendant kept better records of her thefts than the average small business keeps of legitimate sales," end quote. The credit card fraud surfaced last. Whitlock pulled the agency's merchant processor records and found 52 charges, ranging from $104 to over $1,200. That had been run on clients' credit cards on file without prior authorization. Each charge had been used to bring a different client's premium current. The total volume of unauthorized credit card activity exceeded $41,000 on its own. We are about to get into the moment investigators knocked on her door. If you have made it this far, that is because the story deserved to be told properly. Subscribe if you agree. We do this every single week, and we do not look away when the victims are old or the dollar amounts feel small. By March of 2015, Whitlock had a victim list with over 200 names on it. 43 of them had been left effectively uninsured at one point or another during the 3-year scheme. 12 of them, including Mrs. Ochoa, had attempted to use coverage they did not realize had lapsed. 2 of them were Anna's blood relatives, her Aunt Lucia, whose homeowner's policy had been canceled for 14 months before the fraud was discovered, and a cousin in Mission Viejo, whose auto policy had been silently terminated for non-payment 3 weeks before he was rear-ended at a traffic light on Crown Valley Parkway. The cousin's accident was a low-speed collision. No one was injured. The other driver had coverage and absorbed the cost. He never knew, until investigators contacted him, that he had been driving uninsured at the moment of impact, exposed to personal civil liability he could not have afforded. When Whitlock interviewed him at his job at a Mission Viejo auto parts store, she watched his face go through every stage of recognition: confusion, disbelief, anger, then a long silence. He looked up at her and said only one thing. He said, quote, "She came to my wedding," end quote. The arrest came at 6:47 in the morning on April 22, 2015, at Ana Garcia's home on Camino Capistrano in Capistrano Beach. 2 investigators from the DA's office, including Whitlock, and a uniformed sheriff's deputy stood on the front porch of the small stucco home, with its terracotta tile roof and a sun-faded plastic big wheel parked beside the driveway. Anna answered the door in a gray bathrobe. Her hair was uncombed. Her 10-year-old daughter was visible behind her in the hallway holding a cereal bowl. Whitlock identified herself. Investigator Whitlock: "Mrs. Nuno Garcia, we have a warrant for your arrest on charges of grand theft and embezzlement. We also have a search warrant for the premises." Ana Garcia: "Can my daughter go to school? Please, she has a field trip today." Investigator Whitlock: "Is there another adult in the home?" Ana Garcia: "My husband. He is upstairs." Whitlock waited while Hector Nuno came down the stairs. He stopped on the 3rd step from the bottom when he saw the deputy. He looked at Anna. Anna would not meet his eyes. He told the daughter to go upstairs and get her shoes on, that he would drive her himself. The girl, who would later be described in the social worker's report as, quote, "unusually composed," end quote, did exactly as she was told. Once the daughter was out of earshot, Whitlock began again. Investigator Whitlock: "Mrs. Garcia, do you know why we are here?" Ana Garcia: "I think so." Investigator Whitlock: "Can you tell me in your own words what you think this is about?" She paused. Her hands were folded in front of her, fingers laced. She was looking at the welcome mat. Ana Garcia: "I made a mistake." Investigator Whitlock: "More than one mistake. 300 of them." Ana Garcia: "I never wanted anyone to get hurt. I was going to put it back. All of it." Investigator Whitlock: "Mrs. Ochoa's house caught fire, Mrs. Garcia." There was a long silence. Anna brought one hand up to her mouth. She did not cry. She closed her eyes. Ana Garcia: "I want to speak with an attorney." Those were the last words she said to investigators that morning. She was placed in handcuffs in her own kitchen, in front of the refrigerator covered with her children's school drawings, and walked to the unmarked sedan parked at the curb. Her husband stood in the front doorway with their son's backpack in his hand and did not speak. Ana Garcia was charged with 2 felony counts in the Superior Court of California, County of Orange. Count 1, embezzlement by an employee in violation of Penal Code Section 5023. Count 2, grand theft in violation of Penal Code Section 487. The complaint alleged a course of conduct involving more than 300 individual acts of theft, totaling $195,626 in diverted client funds between September of 2011 and November of 2014. She was released on her own recognizance the same day after the arraignment. Her attorney, a Newport Beach defense lawyer named David Castellanos, entered a not guilty plea on her behalf and immediately began negotiating with the DA's office. The case did not go to trial. Castellanos secured a delay first, then a second, then a third, while restitution discussions continued in parallel. Anna and her husband sold the Capistrano Beach home in late 2017 and moved into a rental in a smaller neighborhood across the freeway in San Clemente. The proceeds from the sale, after the mortgage was satisfied, went into a restitution escrow held by Castellanos' firm. It came to $91,000. It was not enough. The California Department of Insurance moved first. In a separate administrative action, Ana Gabriela Nuno Garcia's personal lines broker agent license was revoked on September 14, 2016. The administrative law judge wrote, quote, "The licensee engaged in a sustained, deliberate, and systemic pattern of dishonesty toward the very clients whose financial security she was licensed to protect. There is no reasonable circumstance under which her license should be restored." End quote. The criminal case finally resolved on July 21, 2021, 6 years and 3 months after the arrest. Ana Garcia pleaded guilty to both counts before Judge Margaret Hsu in Department C61 of the Orange County Superior Court in Santa Ana. The plea was negotiated. The prosecution had pushed for state prison time. The defense had pushed for probation. Judge Hsu chose probation, but she did not do so quietly. Mrs. Ochoa was 88 years old at the time of sentencing. Her grandson Daniel pushed her wheelchair to the podium. She read a victim impact statement in Spanish that took 11 minutes to deliver, with a court interpreter translating sentence by sentence. She said she had trusted Anna because Anna had reminded her of her own daughter. She said she still kept the cash receipts in a coffee can in her closet. She said the worst part was not the fire. The worst part was sitting on the curb in front of her burned kitchen and being told by the firefighter that the insurance lady had not been paying her bills. She ended with one sentence. She said, quote, "I forgave you in my heart a long time ago, but my home will never look the same." End quote. 4 other victims spoke. Anna's aunt Lucia did not. Lucia had refused to participate in the prosecution. She had sent a brief letter to the court instead, in Spanish, asking the judge to be merciful because her niece was, quote, "a girl who got lost," end quote. The letter was read into the record over the objection of the prosecutor. Judge Hsu sentenced Ana Garcia to 2 years of formal probation, 120 days of community service to be performed at a nonprofit serving elderly residents, and ordered restitution in the amount of $190,676, payable on a graduated schedule over the term of probation and beyond. The judge's sentencing statement was unusual. She read it from a prepared page, slowly, looking directly at the defendant. She said, quote, "Mrs. Garcia, the legislature has given me a sentencing range here, and I am choosing not to send you to state prison. I want you to understand why. I am not doing this because what you did was small. What you did was not small. You stole from elderly people who could not check their own statements. You stole from your own family. You left a grandmother sitting on the curb of her burned home wondering if she would lose the house. I am giving you probation because the people you hurt the most asked me to. They asked me to let you go home to your children, the way you did not let Mrs. Ochoa go home to her kitchen. Do not mistake their mercy for the court's approval. You will pay this back, every dollar, for as long as it takes, and you will spend the rest of your working life as a woman who can no longer be trusted with anyone else's money. That is a sentence the court cannot impose. You imposed it on yourself." End quote. Ana Garcia did not respond. Her attorney guided her by the elbow back to the defense table. Hector Nuno was in the gallery. So were the 2 children, now 17 and 14, who had taken the day off from school. The family left through a side door. The restitution was still being paid as of the most recent court review. Anna works as a bookkeeper at a small dental office in San Clemente, where the dentist who hired her knew the entire story and hired her anyway, on the condition that she never touch the patient billing account. She has not. The State Farm Agency in Dana Point is still in operation. Brian Whitfield personally repaid every uninsured loss his client suffered during Anna's 3 years at the agency. The total cost to him, out of pocket, was over $300,000. He has not hired a bilingual office manager since. He answers the Spanish language calls himself, in the broken Spanish he learned in the Marines. Mrs. Ochoa passed away in 2022 at the age of 89 in the rebuilt kitchen of her San Clemente home. Her grandson Daniel still keeps the coffee can full of receipts. He keeps it, he told a reporter, as a reminder that paper is only as good as the person who signs it. This case was quiet, but this next case on the right-hand side, what the woman did to her own patients, is going to leave you speechless. Click it now.